When we call someone a villain, it comes with the assumption that maybe you shouldn't trust this guy. Yet for some reason, people keep trusting villains, and the villains in turn keep betraying them. And a great example of that scenario comes from Invincible. David Anders, aka Dinosaurus, appearing in the Invincible comic book series is an interesting villain. While he does incredibly evil things, he is genuinely trying to save the world and the human race from climate change and the fact that we are destroying our own planet and resources. That just got very real. Following in the logic of the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few, he has done some truly awful things, like destroying the entirety of Las Vegas. But still, Invincible saw the good in this villain, and he decided to team up with him anyways. Unfortunately, that was a mistake. From Invincible issue 98 to 100, we got an event called The Death of Everyone. Mark had been affected by the Scourge virus and had temporarily lost his powers, and because of that, Dinosaurus took things into his own hands, distracting Invincible and the heroes with devices in Los Angeles that caused earthquakes, while his real plan was to detonate devices all over Greenland, melting the ice and leading to a massive rise in sea level, wiping out thousands of people living in the world's coastal cities. It's hard because on one hand you can understand why Mark would trust this villain, but on the other hand you're like, dude, you really should have known better. As some of you loyal nerds may know, this next spot is one of my favorite moments in comic books. So to preface, in Marvel Comics, Magneto and the Red Skull should not be allowed in the same room. Given each other's past, especially at the time of World War II with Red Skull working German forces, and Magneto and his family being victims of one of the worst atrocities mankind has ever committed, perpetrated by the very group that Red Skull was a prominent part of, it's safe to say that these two wouldn't ever work together. But that's not actually the case. In Acts of Vengeance from 1989, Doctor Doom, Kingpin, Wizard, Mandarin, Magneto, and the Red Skull were all temporarily united by Loki in a common goal, which isn't really relevant to this point. What is relevant is that Magneto was pretty unsure whether or not this was the same Red Skull that aided Germany in the slaughter of his people, or if it was someone just using the Red Skull name and look. So Magneto just straight up asked him. Yes, this was the same Red Skull, and he even compared Magneto's own crimes to that of Red Skull's short-mustached leader in World War II, and that was dumb. Magneto almost instantly turned on and overpowered his fellow villain. Magneto doesn't just end him though. No. He instead leaves the Red Skull in a stripped-down fallout shelter 20 feet underground with no ladder to reach a patch, 10 gallons of water, no food, no light, just oxygen and his own thought. Magneto and the Red Skull are iconic, but no one is as iconic as Doctor Doom. In the beginning of his comic book life, Doom wanted nothing more than to save his mom from the hold of Mephisto. Once a year, every single year, Doom would challenge Mephisto for the fate of his mother's soul, but he almost always lost until 1989 when he teamed up with Doctor Strange in Triumph and Torment. Shortly after their arrival in Hell, the Doctors began to realize that they don't stand a chance at winning at all. When the two became separated, Mephisto makes Doom an offer: Doctor Strange's soul in exchange for his mother's, a deal that Doom accepts. Doctor Doom captures Strange and goes to complete the deal, but after Doom's mom became so offended that her son would sell the Sorcerer Supreme just to save her soul, she refused to be freed, and that's when Doctor Doom's real plan could kick in. Thanks to his mother's pure act and a gadget that Doom slipped into Doctor Strange's cloak, the Sorcerer Supreme was able to use the power of Cynthia Von Doom's pure act to wound Mephisto and free both himself and Victor's mom, and the three of them escaped. Doom did like a double betrayal, tricking Mephisto, who is the master of tricking people. It's awesome. But if we are going to talk about Doctor Doom, he actually had a moment where he betrayed the entire villain community as a whole, when his morality switched and he donned a highly advanced suit of Iron Man's Model Prime Mark 51 armor, painted it gray, green, and light blue, and became infamous Iron Man. This was absolutely awesome, and his costume is still one of the coldest Iron Man and Doctor Doom looks I have ever seen. His power was almost unmatched, with Von Doom's sorcery being mixed with the technology and arsenal of Iron Man. He was a force to be reckoned with, but it wasn't just that. Doom had spent years as one of the biggest bad guys around, and he had intricate knowledge of the criminal underworld, and he absolutely used it. A group of villains were all gathered together to figure out what the heck they were gonna do now that Doom had switched sides. That's when Doom just busts in through the roof and takes them all down. Heavy hitters like the Wizard, the Wrecking Crew, the Hood, and Jigsaw all all went down in one go. Now switching over to DC Comics for this one of the main goals of the New 52 was to show the same old popular heroes in a new light for younger readers and to help make these awesome characters easier to get into. But it also had the benefit of introducing a few new characters entirely, like Atomica. Atomica was essentially a female version of the Atom, and she worked directly with the Justice League for some time, but simultaneously she was working for two other factions entirely. As the Justice League became a more and more powerful group and a seeming threat to the world, Atomica was reluctantly recruited by Amanda Waller to bring the team of heroes down. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but this is a list of villain betrayals. Indeed, you are correct. And it was later revealed that Atomica actually hailed from Earth 3, the home of the crime syndicate of America, and Atomica was very much a part of that team of villains from the get-go. She was never actually a hero. After instigating Trinity War by stabbing a shard of kryptonite into Superman's brain, Atomica then allowed the Outsider, Earth 3's Alfred Pennyworth, to summon the crime syndicate, reuniting her with Johnny Quick, her lover. Thankfully, while the Justice League got completely clobbered, the villains of the main DC universe at the time stepped up to the heroic plate, and Atomica got squashed like a bug by Lex Luthor. 2018's War of the Realms is one of the most refreshingly good Marvel comic book events. It brought the Thor run at the time to an awesome end, with Malekith, King of the Dark Elves, invading the Earth with a coalition of villains. One member of Malekith's Dark Council of Villains was the adopted brother of Thor, Loki. Loki kind of toes the line between villain and hero, and here it's no different, as he was technically working as a double agent for Asgard on this Council of Villains. But Malekith knew that he couldn't trust Loki at all, and so he sent assassins to take Loki out, who obviously survived because he has the power of popularity. But Loki's real moment to shine came courtesy of his own father, Laufey. As part of Malekith's invasion force, Laufey and his frost giants invaded Earth, and a large group of Asgardians and Earthlings came to stop them. When Laufey grabbed up Loki's new mom, Freya, Loki was all like, "Nuh-uh," and he cut off Laufey's giant hand. Loki then gives Freya some info about Thor's whereabouts before completely gobbled up by Laufey. But that's not the end. Fast forward from issue 1, where this happens, all the way to the last issue in the event, and Daredevil, who has become this awesome god of fear, chucks Heimdall's blade, Hofund, into Laufey's mouth, and Loki, who had been alive this whole time, uses it to cut his way out of Laufey's insides. It's so cool. Now, most people recognize the Thunderbolts team as a group of villains and anti-heroes coming together to fight the good fight. Melissa Gold, who goes by the superhero alias Songbird, was one of the Thunderbolts' first members. Melissa had vocal cord-based sound abilities that were later replaced by a set of vocal cord implants that allowed her to do a whole bunch of things like generating powerful sonic blasts, sonic force fields, influencing others with high-pitched sonic vibrations, and even creating solid objects from sound, including wings, which were super cool. She became a prominent member of the Thunderbolts, which itself was at first actually just a front for Baron Zemo and his new Masters of Evil, pretending to be superheroes while they planned world domination. But turns out Melissa and most of the other Thunderbolts actually kinda grew to be pretty satisfied playing as heroes. Songbird, Meteorite, Jolt, Mach 1, and eventually Atlas began to truly grow into their own, and ultimately, the Thunderbolts completely turned against Zemo, stopping him and rescuing the Avengers in the process. They then became an actual vigilante group, at least for a while. Next up isn't so much of a betrayal as it is a minor mind control that resulted in a really cool moment. Taking place in Action Comics 892, Lex Luthor has picked up Black Lantern energy in the Arctic Circle, and he hires Deathstroke to come along as some added security. Unfortunately, when Deathstroke goes to investigate the Black Lantern energy, he ends up being corrupted, and Lex Luthor is forced to don his battle armor and hold off Deathstroke as long as possible. This is such a cool fight because even if it's kind of short-lived, it just puts two people against each other that you know you want to see. It's pretty awesome and somewhat close. Even though Luthor's strength is greater with his suit, Deathstroke is a combat genius and he's fast as hell. With Deathstroke being able to get Lex with more than a few good hits, and thanks to the Black Lantern energy affecting Lex as well, Deathstroke very nearly takes Lex's life, only to be brought back to his senses at the very last minute. Luckily, it only results in an understandable pay cut for Deathstroke. Now coming up in our runner-up spot, when us comic book nerds were first introduced to Harley Quinn way back in Batman the Animated Series, she was pretty much just the Joker's love interest and a sidekick. But since then, her character has gone through some dramatic changes. A big part of why that happened is because it's pretty damn clear that the Joker only really cares about himself and has never truly cared for Harley Quinn. Their relationship is toxic with a capital T and is not something for anyone to idolize, even though that happened for a little weird while there. So it was actually super refreshing to finally see her stand up for herself in Harley Quinn issue number 1 from 2000. When Harley breaks her hubby bubby boo out of Arkham Asylum, her friend and eventual romantic partner, Poison Ivy, pays her a visit to deliver some harsh truths about her relationship with the Joker and how he is no bueno for the Quinzel. While she is characteristically initially in denial, Harley is eventually forced to admit that she was wrong about the Joker after he shoots Poison Ivy, who had disguised herself as Harley Quinn. She then defends Ivy from Joker's goons before actually trading blows with Joker himself, and even though she almost falls for his lies multiple times during that fight, by the end of the comic, she kicked the Joker to the curb, at least for a little while. And finally, for a little while now in the X-Men comics, mutants have found a home on the sentient island of Krakoa, with all mutants, good guys and bad guys, being offered sanctuary and a fresh start on this new nation. One longtime X-Men villain, Mr. Sinister, happened to have a genetic database that became a crucial part for the mutant resurrection protocols, and so Mr. Sinister was welcomed not only to live on the island, but also to join the Quiet Council, ruling over Krakoa. He began leading the Hellions, or Helions, or whatever you want to call them, and seemed to be actually looking out for Krakoa's interests. No, he wasn't. Enter the sins of Sinister's story and timeline. After Emma Frost revealed that Moira McTaggart has actually always been a mutant with the ability to reset the timeline upon her passing, Sinister immediately gained a sample of her DNA and created the Moira engine, which was basically just a bunch of Moira clones. When he activated a clone's X gene, it created a save point in the timeline so that if events ever went against Sinister's plans, he only needed to upload his knowledge into the clone and destroy it, which reset the timeline and allowed him to begin fresh with even more knowledge. He managed to corrupt every mutant with his own DNA, putting them under his control, and he eventually conquered the Earth and very nearly almost achieved godhood. But that's all I got. Think I missed something? Let me know down in the comments. I'm Adam Andrews, you're watching Top 10 Nerd. I will catch you all on the flippy flop, but until then, stay safe. Peace out, nerds.